Since 1972, Bunker Roy has been the moving spirit behind Barefoot College, a unique educational organization in India created by and for the very poor. It's open only to people with no formal education whatever, many of them illiterate. The college marries traditional knowledge with new sustainable technology, creating fresh approaches to health and sanitation, rural employment, sustainable energy, and ecological conservation. Its students come not only from India, but from more than 20 third world countries. Bunker Roy is also the founder of the Global Rainwater Harvesting Collective, which provides Asian and African villages with clean, drinkable rainwater for schools, libraries, hospitals, and family planning centers. Bunker Roy's work perfectly illustrates what might be called the ecology of positive action. His focus is education, but what Barefoot College does in the field of education has a powerful impact on the whole of human life, on health, on village mores, on technology and communication, and on the environment. I interviewed Bunker Roy in Thimphu, Bhutan, where he was participating in a pioneering conference on education for gross national happiness as opposed to gross national product. That evening, Bhutan's education minister was hosting a cultural program for the many foreign educators at the conference, and my interview with Bunker Roy ended when the music started up in the lobby of our hotel. For your enjoyment, we've included a few minutes of Bhutanese music and dance for you as well. Someone asked me what you do, and I said that you work at the intersection of education, equity, and ecology. Is that fair?
We can make it a bit more simple. We are trying to do a lot of things at the same time. The Barefoot College that we started 40 years ago is the only college in India only for the poor. Built by the poor, managed by the poor, controlled by the poor. And by the poor, we mean less than $1 a day. And because I had already lived with them for 5 years as an unskilled laborer, digging wells, I was exposed to some of the extraordinary knowledge and skills that these very poor people have. And in our discussions over many hours at night in the villages, the first thing they told me was, please don't give any importance to paper degrees and qualifications, because traditional knowledge and skill is so much more valuable, so much more endurable, so much more relevant and practical. And can we have a college only for ourselves, that only what we feel is important and relevant should be reflected in the lifestyle and work style of the college? And that is exactly how for the 38 years we have managed to work. It's one of the few colleges in India which still believes in the lifestyle and work style of Mahatma Gandhi. Unfortunately, if you ask the movers and shakers in India, they think if you talk about Mahatma Gandhi, you're taking them back 19th century. Actually, he has a universal message which is relevant even in the 21st century. And by showing the Barefoot, what we can achieve in the Barefoot College with semi-literate, illiterate men and women, has made a lot of people think that there is an alternative available. You know, Mark Twain said, never let school interfere with your education. We are a great believer in that. School is what you learn to read and write, but education is what you get from your family, your environment, and your community. So there's a lot of layers and levels in the Barefoot College. We're working on poverty, we're working on ecology, we're working on simplicity, we're working on indigenous knowledge. So there's a mixture of everything in the Barefoot College.
Yeah, so the three I described are only really a piece of it.
That's right.
Yeah. So how does someone go to the Barefoot College? How do your students emerge, and what do they do when they get there?
Well, you have to be a dropout or a cop-out or a washout. You have to be someone who has not been contaminated by the formal system. You have to be someone who lives in a village, is rooted in a village, who has no hopes of getting a government job or any other job, city or otherwise. And then you're eligible to come to the college. It is open for everybody who fits into that criteria. So you could walk into the Barefoot College and stay for as long as you like, provided you observe, respect the principles and values of the Barefoot College. So we don't have any problems of people coming and wanting to work, picking up a skill, acquiring some confidence, and then going back to the village and serving their own community. This is the whole idea.
This is exactly what you want, isn't it?
This is exactly what we want, and this is exactly what has happened. We managed to keep the environment in the Barefoot College. It's a bit utopian. You don't find it anywhere else. A lot of people can't figure out how the Barefoot College works and ticks. There's something in the college which can't be explained. For instance, we don't sign a contract with anybody in the college. Everyone comes and stays with me for 20 years and can go tomorrow. Because if you don't want to stay, we don't bind you down with a piece of paper. So it's a college where, we call it a college because it's a place for learning and unlearning. It's a place where the teacher is the learner and the learner is the teacher. It's a place where you try crazy ideas and do anything crazy. It doesn't work, you're battered and bruised, it doesn't matter, you come back and try again. So what if it doesn't work the first time? It's a place where you learn a little bit about yourself too. So it's a mixture of a Gandhian ashram, it's a mixture of a bit of a kibbutz, it's a mixture of a bit of
I think you've captured the heart of it when you say a learning environment, right? I mean, that's what it's for. It's for people to come together and learn together.
Yeah. No one can come to the college and say, this is not my job, or I don't know anything about this. So if someone has been to the college for 4 or 5 years and you ask him, what have you been doing in the college? He could say, I started as a cook. And then I said, I'd like to learn something about accounts. Then he becomes an accountant. And then he could jump and become a puppeteer. And then he could become even a solar engineer. So he or she has the option to decide and choose what he or she wants to learn and pick up so that you can serve your community back home. So no one can ever say that I don't know something about the subject. You have to learn everything and keep your eyes open and your mind open for everything that the college offers.
Well, you obviously love the villages, and this really is oriented towards serving the villages. I do too. I've lived in one for 35 years in Canada. But it sounds to me as though everywhere in the world the same thing is happening. The villages are being drained of their young people, they're being drained of their little institutions, post offices, schools, whatever that may be. And we're always being told that this is inevitable, that urbanization is inevitable. You obviously haven't fallen into that trap.
I don't think it's inevitable if you have an option that is workable and people can see the impact and feel the impact on the ground. We have, as a result of this approach, managed to reverse migration to several 100,000 people because we have trained people who are illiterate to be doctors and teachers and engineers and designers and architects and water engineers and solar engineers, all of them going back to the community and the community supporting them. So if you have a skill that you've acquired and if you have some work in a village, no one in his right mind would like to go into a slum in a city. So if you have provided that option in a village and given the person some dignity and self-esteem, they will stay. So we managed to make sure that these people actually stay in the village, provide a service, get the self-respect, get the respect of the community at large, and then be supported by the community. So I don't think it's a lost case. I think if you provide work and dignity in a village, no one would like to leave a village and go to a city. When I went to the village for the first time, to Tilonia, The elders came to me and said, "Are you running from the police?" I said, "No, I'm not running. You didn't get a government job?" I said, "No, I wasn't looking for a government job." "Are you a failure? You'll fail in your exam?" I said, "No, I didn't fail." "Why are you here? What's wrong with you? Is there something wrong with you you're not telling me?" I said, "No, there's nothing wrong with me." No one comes back to the village. A formal system does not condition you to come back to a village. If I come back to a village, it's a sign of failure or a punishment. So all the people, millions that you see living in slums and pavements in the cities, cannot go back because people will laugh at them. They want to go back. Lots of people want to go back. But they haven't got a choice because the people laugh at them and they feel punished and they feel they're going to look at them as a failure because they haven't made money, they haven't come with a car, they haven't come with a television. So this is all hang-ups that the formal education system has drilled into you. And it's a very sad, sad outcome of the formal system today. So I am a great disbeliever of the formal educational system in India, or globally, all over the world.
I was going to say, this doesn't sound very different from other parts of the world. And the certification thing is an issue too. It's because presumably those people are going back with those skills, but they're not going back with certificates.
No,
and if there's a
no
requirement,
one is the policy of the Barefoot College never to give a paper certificate to anyone. And the certification has to be done by the community at large. If I can solar electrify a village, I'm illiterate and I solar electrify a village, that is certification for me. I don't need any piece of paper to hanging on the wall to tell me that I'm an engineer. We've had extraordinary experiences in, for instance, we brought the first 3 women ever from Afghanistan. I went to Afghanistan in 2005. I said, I want to take some women from Afghanistan. They said, you're crazy. They can't get out of their village, they can't get out of their rooms, and you want to take them to India? You're a bit of a nutcase you are. I said, I'll take the husbands or I'll make a concession. So the husbands came. 10 men and women came to the Barefoot College for the first time in the history of Afghanistan in 2005. Through sight and sound and sign language, not the written word. In 6 months, they became solar engineers. And they went back and solar electrified the first ever villages in Afghanistan, 5 of them. We made a film on this. It's called The Ordinary Heroes of Afghanistan. They just won an award in Hollywood for some reason. In the film, I said that to bring 10 men and women from Afghanistan into India, train them for 6 months, buy 150 solar panels, transport them, insure them, and install them in 1 year is the cost of one UN consultant sitting for 1 year in Kabul. And the UN said, you can't show this. I said, why? Aren't you actually spending $100,000 to $150,000 on one consultant in Kabul, and there's 700 of them there? And you haven't solar electrified one village. You're pushing papers, making policies, and you haven't been able to show how you're spending your money. Those 3 women have actually trained 27 more women, and they have solar electrified 100 villages in Afghanistan without anyone coming to India. So they were engineers as well as trainers. Amazing. My best solar engineer is a 55-year-old grandmother, illiterate, in the Faryab region in Afghanistan. Solar electrified 200 houses in September 2005, still working today. I asked the lady, would you like to speak to some engineers, these hotshot engineers in Afghanistan, all heads of departments? She said, yes, of course. And she answered everyone with so much dignity, slowly. And in fact, also explained to an engineer who was head of the engineering department the difference between AC and DC. The guy didn't know. No. So, grandmother explained to him what is the difference between AC. It is extraordinary. So with that experience, we've gone all over Africa.
That, I was going to say that you've expanded beyond Asia too, right?
Yeah. By 2010, we will have covered the whole continent of Africa.
With solar electrification.
110 grandmothers, all solar electrified, over 6,000 houses, 100 villages. And they've done it within the space of 2005 to 2009. And the whole cost of that whole operation is $2 million. And that is what Jeff Sachs is wasting on one Millennium Village.
Yeah. Where does the 2 million come from?
I have an extraordinary deal with the government of India. The government of India, usually you can't excite any governments anywhere in the world, including the government of India. Government of India has given me a blank check. If I go to any part of the world, any part of Africa, and I pick up a grandmother, the government of India is obliged to give the airfare and 6 months training costs. So I have a whopping budget from the government of India to do this. Then I've got foundations in the US and in Holland to support the hardware. There's something called the Skoll Foundation, which is based in San Francisco, which is started by a Canadian, in fact, Jeff Skoll, who started eBay and sold the eBay. You don't know him? Yes. Yeah, great guy. Fantastic Canadian, good guy. He's so good, and he's so generous, and he believes in the social entrepreneurship movement. And he actually identifies about 8 or 9 people every year and gives them the money to be able to expand the whole approach. And he gave us some money in 2005 to expand into 6-7 countries all over Africa. So, and I also have a good global deal with the UNDP. So that if I do the software side, which is the training and the travel, then they give me some money for the hardware, for $50,000 for the hardware. So putting everything together comes to about $2 million.
Fantastic.
Leverage.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, good.
How do you find those particular women? How do you find the people? How do the people who go to Barefoot College, for that matter, how do they find you or you find them?
I work through NGOs who have already got a track record in these countries. So in the 20 countries that we're working in Africa, there are already NGOs with a track record working in that country, working in villages, and most of them in any case non-electrified. So they have to look after the identification of the village and the selection of the women. And I have to be there personally. I will not trust anyone to choose the woman because I know they will choose the wrong woman, because they cannot believe that an illiterate woman can become an engineer. So they'll always send a literate woman. You know, it has to be. Not in the... Yeah, it's madness. So I have to be there personally. So I've been to all these 21 countries personally. And I have to see the woman, the selection is right. And then I go to the nearest Indian embassy and prepare the documents for them. And they have to travel every 6 months. But even if you don't know the language, it's so easy to know which woman you want to take. You know, bright eyes, body language good, communication skills, respect in the community. I had a great experience in Zambia. I went to Zambia and I saw these women selecting 2 women. And in the first half an hour, I knew which woman I would like to take, even though I didn't know what was happening. So after the meeting, they said, these 2 women will go. I said, no. They said, why? I said, no, I want to take that woman. They said, how do you know? You don't know the language, how do you know you want to? I said, I like the way she thinks, the way she's talking, her movements. Grandmother. They said, no, not possible. Difficult husband. I said, you call the husband. So the husband came, swaggering, politician, mobile in his hand. Not possible. I said, why? He said, can't you see how good looking she is? I said, yeah, she's very good looking. What happens if he runs off with an Indian man? So that was his major problem. I saw the mobile in his hand and I said, I promise that she will ring you up every week on your mobile. Single, happy and working. Not run off with any man, promise. So the whole village piled up and said, yes, you must allow her to come and don't. So she came. A woman battered, definitely husband overpowering, subdued, uncertain, insecure. After 6 months, she walked out of the plane like a tiger. She handled the press like a veteran. All the press was on her. And she handled it like she's been interviewed hundreds and thousands of times. She floored the vice president of the Gambia because she's a woman, and the woman couldn't believe that this woman has come back. And the unhappiest chap was the husband, because the husband couldn't believe this woman had come back, and she couldn't give a damn about the husband, you know. Just, husband, where is she? Doesn't matter. It was such a great feeling after 6 months to see this woman coming back like a tiger. So you see it happening in front of your eyes in 6 months, a grandmother becoming a tiger. It's fantastic.
You're not just electrifying a village, you're electrifying the people.
And making grandmothers as role models, first time. Changing men-women relationships in a village. When the woman came back for the first time from Afghanistan and solar electrified the village, usually in Afghanistan the women sit about 3 kilometers away and the men sit right in the middle of the village. And this woman went and sat with the men. And the men said, "What do you think you're doing? You should be sitting there, 3 kilometers away. What are you doing here?" She said, "Today, I'm not a woman, I'm an engineer." And for the first time you could see it actually dawning on the men that, boy, this woman is actually an engineer, she's not a woman. And they said, yes. So she actually broke tradition, 3,000 years of tradition, just by a simple sitting down with the men. And we couldn't have done that ever without her showing so much guts. She just quietly sat down there. And the whole thing changed, the whole perception changed. And now they treat her like equal instead of a woman. So lots of spin-offs from doing just solar electrification.
It's always women. Tell me about that.
Men are untrainable. They're impatient. They're restless, they're ambitious, and everyone wants a certificate. Grandmothers, solid, sound, patient, and they are willing to learn slowly, and they are not interested in going to a city because they're rooted in the village. They have land in the village, family in the village, animals in the village. They have no interest in going to a village. So I've never had a grandmother leaving the village that we have trained. So I think it is changing the whole relationship in a village that we wanted. And we are saying to the men who want to be trained, that would you like to be trained by a grandmother? And they said, no, they're horrified. No. I said, well, you can't be trained as an engineer then. Because this woman can train you as an engineer if you want. But this woman will never give you a certificate. So what do you want to be trained for? You want to go to a village or you want to go to a city and try and get a job? Because you won't get a certificate from us or anybody. So that's the reason, that's one major reason why, one major way how we are preventing the migration from taking place.
You were saying this is actually reverse migration too, eh?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, how that works.
We have found in Africa in many villages which have been solar electrified, that men are actually, the families are actually coming back from the city back to the village because it's become a status to have solar light in your village. And why should you be live in darkness in the capital of Freetown in Sierra Leone when you have bright light 24 hours in your village? So lots of them are going back. And that's been a good, we never thought this would happen. We've never planned this. When I went to Ethiopia 6 months ago, about a year ago, and I asked these women, what have you done with the solar light? They said, we've given a solar light lantern to every traditional midwife. And now there are 500 babies being delivered of solar lanterns. Otherwise, they've been delivered of the fireside and candles. So the quality of life has improved enormously by this sort of thing. We didn't think of it. They all thought of it on their own. So it's very good to see how they improvise and how they themselves decide what is important.
Tell me that a little bit about what happened to the men who came with their wives from Afghanistan, because that must have been a profound experience for the men too.
They have become a team. They become a couple which looks after the rural electronic workshop. The grandmother came with the grandson, and both are now, last heard, installing reverse osmosis desalination plants in Afghanistan. 5 of them they've installed.
Isn't that fabulous?
Fantastic. It's absolutely out of this world what they've done to that. We never even planned for this, but they've gone way beyond.
I can't let you go without asking you to tell me a little bit about the Children's Parliament after hearing that wonderful story that you told in the session earlier today.
60% of India's children don't go to school in the morning because they look after the cattle, they look after the sheep, look after the goats, and look after domestic chores, fetching firewood, fetching water. So they only have time in the evening. So we decided that we'll start a school only for the convenience of the children rather than for the convenience of the teacher, which usually is a major factor. So in 1975, we started the first night schools of Tilonia. We call it Tilonia because that's the name of the village. And we have managed to get over 50,000 children between 1975 to now who have gone through the night schools and stayed in the village. And they haven't gone back because they have understood how important it is that they stay and provide a service to their own community. So they are shopkeepers, they look after milk, they are politicians, all of them have grown up. But 9 years ago we felt that, that the school shouldn't be monitored by us, it should be monitored by the children because the school is for the children. So we decided on this novel way of having an election. So about 7,000 children elect a prime minister. The children are between 6 and 14 years old. And the prime minister is 12 years old. She looks after 20 goats in the morning because she's prime minister in the evening. She has a cabinet of 20 boys and girls, all between 6 and 14. Minister for Education, Minister for Employment, Minister for Energy, Minister for Women's Affairs, and everyone has a responsibility. And we are obliged, the Barefoot College is obliged to provide transport. If any minister wants to go and visit a school, we have to make sure that he goes and visits the school. And then in the cabinet meeting, they decide what is right or wrong with the schools. If the solar lantern is not working, by the next cabinet meeting, we have to repair that solar lantern because the minister says so. If the prime minister writes a letter, a postcard to me saying this teacher is not working properly and I don't want him there, he is fired. And it's a very serious business. It's not a big joke. It's very, very serious. We minute it. The prime minister speaks. The prime minister has tremendous power over all the night schools. And 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, she got the World's Children's Prize. So she had to go to Sweden. And she went for the first time. Wasn't at all dazzled by anything around her. Sweden was just like any other village for her, the way she was responding. And she got it from the Queen of Sweden, and the Queen of Sweden just couldn't believe that this woman, a young girl, 12 years old, was not dazzled by anything. So she asked me to ask her where she got her confidence from. How come she's not dazzled by anything, and where did she get her confidence? So she looked at the Queen straight in the eye and said, please tell her I'm the Prime Minister. We've had 4 prime ministers going through every 3 years. All of them have been girls because the girls outnumbers the boys, and the boys hate the idea that the prime minister is always a woman. So we make sure that the Speaker of the House is a boy. So we balance it off.
Wouldn't it be a good solution if one of them was good enough that the disadvantage of being a boy didn't count that heavily, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. The overriding objective of the Royal Government of Bhutan is to maximize gross national happiness, and participants in its path-breaking conference were asked to consider the kind of educational system that would prepare students for lives focused not on money, but on human and social fulfillment. The conference was convened by Prime Minister Jigme Y. Finlay, and it was organized by Dr. Ronald Coleman. Its participants included Satish Kumar, Vandana Shiva, and Gregory Kaita, as well as Bunker Roy, all of whom are or will be featured on The Green Interview. If you enjoyed this interview, I'm sure you'll enjoy the others as well. For The Green Interview, I'm Silver Donald Cameron. See you next time.